Hello, Rito. Gloom Hands, also known as Gloom Spawn, and Phantom Ganon pop out of nowhere. They drop some interesting things and they can be difficult to fight, but after you learn their weaknesses, they're not that bad. So today, we'll learn the best ways to defeat them and what their drop items do, and the locations to find them all. If you don't know me, I'm Nico and I like helping find and do everything possible in Zelda games. If you need help finding or doing anything in Zelda games, I hope you consider subscribing or at least checking out the channel. When you appear close to Gloom Hands locations, a pool of gloom will appear. As soon as one of the hands see you, the sky will turn red and they'll go after you and try to grab you. They don't necessarily damage you, they just turn your hearts to gloom. But when the gloom is gone, your hearts don't refill, so I guess they do cause damage. After you defeat the hands, Phantom Ganon will appear. Just know that each hand will respawn after a few seconds if there's another hand still alive, so don't leave any alive. After you defeat Phantom Ganon, you can have some clumps and his weapons. We'll first talk about how to defeat them, then we'll talk about what their drops do, and then all their locations. For fighting them, they will cause gloom. You may not need it, but gloom recovery dishes are great to have by cooking some Sundelions. Also, if you happen to have the Master Sword does extra 15 damage to gloom enemies, so it'll help do some extra damage. Like mentioned earlier, once they see you, they'll go after you. If you can get to high ground, great, they can't reach you, so you can throw stuff or shoot them with a bow. Just know that after a while of not doing anything, they will despawn and drop their clumps. This also applies if you just run far away too. And this can also happen to Phantom Ganon. Personally, I wouldn't fight them head on. If you focus on one, the others will just grab you. So get some distance so you can shoot them with a bow, or you can throw things if you want to save some arrows. The best items to hit them with are bomb flowers and other elemental items. Fruits have the smallest splash distance, enemy items like eyes, wings, and tails are okay, and dragon parts have the largest splash distance. But ores also have a large splash distance, but they have the highest attack damage. It's up to you which ones you want to use depending on what items you can afford to use. The more popular ones are bomb flowers, sapphires, rubies, or topaz. This should be enough to defeat all the gloom hands. Bomb flowers take 6 throws assuming they hit all the hands to defeat them all, and rubies, topaz, and sapphires each need 3 throws to defeat all the gloom hands assuming each throw hits each hand. Just watch out for the splash damage for the thrown materials because they can hit you too. As mentioned earlier, Phantom Ganon will appear after the hands are defeated, and there are 3 types of Phantom Ganons, one with a sword, one with a spear, and one with a club. I'll talk about each one specifically, but first some general notes about all of them. He will be surrounded with a pool of gloom, but the gloom will go away a little bit every time you hit him. So a spear might be a decent weapon to make sure you don't touch the gloom. If you go too far away or high, he'll shoot you with his bow, or he might travel to you. And if you go somewhere he can't reach you with his bow, he will stop and spread gloom everywhere hoping to get you to show yourself. Now let's talk about how they attack with their weapons. First, let's talk about the one with the sword. He swings horizontally with the sword when he puts his sword back to the right side. And if he pulls the sword back to his left side, he'll do a spinning attack. So once you see him pull the sword back, be ready to do a backflip for Flurry Rush. Or you can parry him. Just know that if you block the spin attack, the second spin will hit you. If you're far away, he'll charge you and he can do a horizontal or vertical attack. You can tell which one he's going to do based on how he holds the sword while charging at you. If it's to his side, he'll do a horizontal attack, so you can jump back for a Flurry Rush. And if the sword is above his head, then he'll swing down, so jump sideways. And that's all his attacks. For the one with the spear, it's not better, he just has 2 attacks. If you're close, stabby attack, and if you're far, a charging stabby attack. So jump sideways for a Flurry Rush. The charging one might be easier to dodge since you can see him charging at you. And finally, the one with the club. He has 3 moves, a horizontal swing which he also gives away before he swings at you. So jump back and dodge it. A jumping vertical swing which he will also do it if you're far away. You can jump sideways to dodge it. And he'll kick your shield if you're holding it close to him. Now for the Gloom Hand drops. If you defeat them or stall enough and they decide to go away, they will drop 2 or 3 dark clumps. And if you defeat the Phantom Ganon, they will drop whichever weapon that Phantom Ganon had plus the bow. Dark clumps can be used to upgrade 1 gear set. Each piece of the depth set needs 3 dark clumps for the second upgrade. Now for what the weapons do, the sword, club, and spear, they will each inflict gloom to one of Link's hearts every time they're used. If you use the weapon in the surface, of course the gloom will eventually go away, but it still matters because you will lose that health. So they could be useful because of how much attack they do, but you can also use them as a fused item. They each add a decent amount of damage to a weapon. And for the bow's attack depend on how many hearts Link has. The attack is 2 for every heart up to 60 damage. If Link's hearts are gloomed, that can also reduce the attack of the bow. That's everything you can use their drops for. Now let's talk about where to find them. I looked at every single location and I marked which ones have sword, spears, and clubs. If they didn't spawn, I fast traveled there multiple times until they did, but they didn't always spawn and I don't know how to force them to. The sword icon is the Phantom Ganon with the swords, the diamond icons are the ones with the clubs, and the ores are the ones with the spears. And if there's a star, that Gloom Hand didn't spawn, but the object map says that there is one here.
In the depths, there are 8 Gloom Hands. Down here in the southwest, by the Gerudo Desert, there's one with a spear. A little more north, Gerudo Highlands to the west, there's one with a sword. And by the skeleton up north, northwest at this skeleton, there's one with a sword. There's another one with a sword at this skeleton all the way in the north. There's one with the sword by the entrance of the Lost Woods in the depths. There's one in the center, that's for a little quest. Well, you can figure that out yourself. There's one all the way on these islands. That one hasn't spawned for me, so I don't know what it is. And there's one here in the center, which is kind of endgame, so you can see if you can get that. That one has a spear. And on the surface, we're going to start with the Gerudo Desert. There's 3 in the north. These 3 have clubs. If one doesn't show, check the other 2. Then in the labyrinth here, this one hasn't spawned for me. Just south of the Great Plateau, this one has a club in the grassland. On the west of the Great Plateau, this one has a sword. Going all the way to the west on the Gerudo Highlands. It's not on the highlands, it's in this cave just north of that. This one has a sword. On the Great Plateau to the east of it, this one has a sword. North of the Great Plateau, this one has a spear in the Colomo Lake. Going more east in the Daya Village ruins. I'm assuming this one has a club but didn't show up for me. But these are 2 spots here. Going south of Farron by this shoreline, the Como shoreline, this one hasn't spawned for me. In the Farron Woods on this little island cliff here, this one has a spear. On top of Obata Point, all the way in the top here, this one has a spear. In this little track west of the Hateno village, there's one in the sword in this little forest. East Gate Laneru Road, there's 3 here, each with a sword. If one doesn't spawn, check the other 2 spots, it'll spawn. Mount Laneru to the east, this one has a spear. This shrine just south of the Laneru wetlands has a sword. And northeast of the Laneru wetlands, this one has a sword here in this forest, in the woods. Going to Central Hyrule, just north of the shrine with a spear. West of Castletown, spear. In Castletown, this one has a club. In Hyrule Castle, this one is a sword. It's inside this hole that's over here. North of Hyrule Castle, this one is inside the docks. I believe the entrance to the docks is here. This one has a spear. And the island to the east, one with a sword. And the island east of that, this one has a club. This one hasn't spawned for me. I'm assuming this one's with a club. The Akala Citadel ruins, this one has a spear all the way on top. In the cave south of the Death Mountain, the entrance to the cave is here. This one has a spear. South of the Spring of Power, this one has a club. South of Skull Lake also has a club. In the labyrinth to the northeast, with a club right in the center. West of the Yunobo HQ, this one has a sword. West of the Lost Woods, on Makar Island, has a spear. In the Merida Exchange Ruins, this one has a sword. By the tower here, it's in this cave that has a sword. Now Hyrule Ridge, there's 2 here with a club. And the labyrinth all the way to the north, this one has a sword, just north from the center.
I hope Gloom Hands and Phantom Ganons are less scary for you now. And if you needed help finding things for collecting whatever you wanted to collect, I hope this also helped too. Another enemy that may be difficult are Gleeoks, so if you'd like to learn everything about Gleeoks, check out this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you consider subscribing or at least checking out the channel for more Zelda content. See you next time!